There is a voice inside you, not the loud one you perform for the world, not the one fueled by ego, fear, or noise. I'm talking about the one beneath all of that, the still, ancient voice that knows. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg for attention. It whispers patiently, waiting for you to be quiet enough to finally hear it. But we've been trained to speak, react, post, respond. We've become addicted to noise, mistaking movement for progress, and yet the most powerful shifts in life happen in silence. Not in the noise of reaction, but in the quiet of revelation. If you've ever felt lost, overwhelmed, or like your life is louder than your soul, then maybe, just maybe, silence is the path you've been avoiding. There's a kind of silence you haven't felt in years. Not the silence of a quiet room. The silence that lives beneath everything. Beneath the voices, beneath the noise, beneath your own frantic thoughts. The silence that waits for you when you're done performing. When you finally get tired of trying to be everything to everyone. You weren't born into noise. It was given to you. It came through expectations, comparisons, judgments, dressed as advice. It came from the applause you learned to crave, and the criticism you learned to fear. And over time, the voice of the world got louder than your own. You forgot what your truth even sounded like. You scroll, you post, you explain, you defend. But deep down, you're not even sure what you're trying to prove anymore. You speak to be heard, but you're not listening. You move to feel progress, but you're not aligned. You chase clarity in the noise, but all it gives you is motion sickness. No one teaches you how to listen to yourself. They teach you how to perform, how to respond, how to win arguments and gain approval. But they never teach you how to get quiet, how to become still long enough to feel what's actually true. Because truth doesn't shout, it waits for you to get tired of the show. There's a reason your best insights come in the shower, on a long walk, in the early hours when no one else is around. It's not magic, it's space, it's silence. It's the absence of noise long enough for your inner world to breathe again. Because truth lives where the noise ends. And when you finally let the noise die down, the opinions, the pressure, the echo of everything you're supposed to be, you begin to hear something else. Not a voice from above, not a motivational rush, but a calm, steady knowing. A quiet that doesn't beg to be noticed. A truth that just is. And it won't flatter your ego. It won't give you a plan to impress the world, but it will tell you what's next. It will tell you who you are. Not the version others expect, but the one you've always been. And for the first time in a long time, you'll recognize yourself again. The world will keep shouting, but you don't have to answer every call. You don't have to chase every opinion, every reaction, every voice louder than yours. Because real clarity doesn't come when you raise your volume. It comes when you lower the world's. And when it's quiet enough, you'll finally remember. You've always known the way. You think nothing is happening. You've been showing up, quietly, consistently. And still, the results don't match the effort. The waiting feels like punishment, like life is dangling something in front of you, just far enough that you can't reach it. And somewhere deep inside, the fear starts to whisper, maybe it's never going to come. That fear, it grows loud in the silence. You look around and see others moving faster. Their breakthroughs, their applause, their timing. It all seems to move without friction. And you, standing still, start to question whether you're doing something wrong, whether you're falling behind, whether life skipped over you on purpose. But here's what you don't see. There are seasons beneath the surface, invisible ones. Roots grow long before branches ever stretch toward the light. And the deepest roots, they take time. They grow in darkness, in silence, in patience. The kind of patience that doesn't feel heroic. The kind that feels like nothing. But it's not nothing. It's becoming. Because patience, real patience, isn't about doing nothing. It's about trusting something. It's about resisting the urge to rush just to feel productive. It's about knowing that forcing fruit before it's ripe only leads to emptiness dressed as achievement. But most people never get there. They quit in the silence. They abandon their path because the world convinced them that waiting is weakness. But it's not weakness, it's restraint. And restraint is one of the rarest strengths left in this world. See, anyone can sprint when there's a crowd cheering. Anyone can move when there's momentum. But it takes something far deeper to keep showing up with no applause, no recognition, no visible reward. That kind of discipline doesn't come from ego. It comes from belief. Quiet, steady belief that you are not just building something. You are becoming someone, and that becoming cannot be rushed. So let them go ahead of you. Let them chase speed. Let them collect moments that don't last. Because what you're doing, it's slower, it's harder, but it's real. And when it finally breaks through, it won't be fragile. It won't need validation. It will be undeniable. Patience isn't waiting for something to happen. It's knowing something already is, and holding your ground long enough for the rest of the world to see it too. So stay steady, stay quiet, because while the world is chasing fast, you're building something that lasts. You don't need to speak to know. You don't need to move to understand. And you certainly don't need to react just to feel powerful. There's a deeper strength, one most people overlook. Because it isn't loud, it isn't flashy, and it doesn't beg for recognition. It's observation, not passive watching, but conscious, intentional stillness. The kind that sees through the noise and the nonsense. The kind that notices the things others miss, because they're too busy trying to be noticed themselves. And if you've ever felt like you didn't quite fit in with the noise, the race, the chaos, maybe it's because you were never meant to blend in. Maybe your role isn't to echo, it's to witness. You learn more when you stop trying to prove what you know. You see more when you stop trying to be seen. But that takes restraint, because silence, true silence, is uncomfortable. Most people fill it out of habit. They speak without thinking, respond without listening, move without purpose, just to avoid that stillness. Because in stillness, things are revealed about others, about yourself, and not everyone's ready for that. But you are, because you've started to notice what your reactions once covered up. You've started to feel the tension behind other people's words, the contradiction between their tone and their eyes. You've started to see patterns in behavior, in emotion, in energy. And it's not just out there, it's within you, too. You begin to recognize your triggers, your cycles, your need to rush to defend yourself, to explain, to fight battles that aren't even worth the breath. And when you begin to notice, you begin to reclaim your power, because power isn't found in the volume of your voice. It's found in your ability to hold it, to wait, to watch, to see clearly while everyone else is reacting blindly. And while others are busy chasing attention, validation, dominance, you're collecting something far more valuable: understanding. Quiet, steady understanding of how people work, how energy moves, how truth hides in plain sight for those still enough to see it. This is your edge, not your noise, your awareness. And when the moment finally comes to speak, you won't need many words, because the one who has watched, who has listened, who has seen the truth unfold, only needs to speak once, and that will be enough. You've spent so much of your life fighting, defending your name, defending your worth, proving your intent, explaining your silence, justifying your journey. You swing at every opinion, respond to every judgment, argue your value in rooms that never had the capacity to see you. And you're tired, not because you're weak, but because deep down you know you've been giving your energy to battles that never deserved you. You keep trying to win people who never mattered. You keep trying to convince those who are committed to misunderstanding you. And for what? So you can feel right. Let me tell you something that will set you free. Being right is not the same as being at peace. And right now you need peace more than you need approval. You need distance more than you need revenge. You need silence more than you need the last word. But that requires restraint. It requires you to walk away, not because you've lost, but because you finally understood that your energy is currency, and you can't afford to spend it on every opinion that passes through the room. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not every disagreement needs closure. Not every insult needs an answer. Your peace is too expensive to keep trading it for petty validation. See, real power isn't loud. It doesn't chase applause. It doesn't fight to be seen. Real power walks away with clarity. Real power protects its inner world and lets small minds collapse under the weight of their own noise. But that kind of power is rare, because it takes humility. It takes maturity. It takes the strength to say, I don't need to win this argument to know who I am. And in a world built on reaction, walking away will always feel like rebellion. So let it. Let people misinterpret your silence. Let them assume weakness. Let them think they got the last word. Because when you no longer need to win, you've already won. And the time, energy, and presence you save, you'll reinvest that into something that actually matters. Your peace, your purpose, your becoming. Not every battle is worth your sword. Some are only there to teach you that you never needed to draw it in the first place. Nobody claps for the moment you choose discipline over impulse. Nobody sees the nights you sit with your pain instead of distracting yourself. Nobody praises the decision to stay, rebuild, and rise, alone, quietly, without spectacle. That's the part no one prepares you for. The real growth is invisible. It doesn't happen when you post about your goals. It doesn't happen when you get recognized. It happens in the quiet, brutal in-between spaces, the ones where you doubt yourself, question everything, and still choose to keep going. Growth doesn't look impressive when it's real. It looks boring. It looks repetitive. It looks like showing up when no one's watching. It looks like being honest with yourself in the mirror. It looks like doing the work when nothing seems to be changing. And that's where most people quit, because they think growth should feel like momentum. But the truth is, it often feels like standing still while the world moves around you. But here's what you need to understand. The deeper the transformation, the quieter it becomes. Because when you're really growing, you're not trying to be seen. You're trying to heal. You're trying to understand. You're trying to unlearn everything that's been holding you hostage. And that work, the kind that changes you forever, doesn't come with applause. It comes with silence, with solitude, with the kind of self-honesty most people never have the courage to face. But if you stay in it long enough, honestly enough, you'll wake up one day and realize something profound. You're no longer triggered by the same things. You no longer crave the same validation. You no longer betray your peace just to feel momentarily significant. That's what growth really is. Not a celebration, a shift, a quiet, steady shift in who you are. And the world may never see it, but you will feel it. And that is enough. You talk to everyone else. You seek advice. You ask for clarity. You chase signs, signals, confirmations. But when was the last time you actually listened to yourself? Not the version of you shaped by pressure. Not the voice trained to say the right thing at the right time. I mean the part of you that speaks when it's quiet. The part that doesn't need to perform. The one you buried under obligation, noise, and guilt. That voice has been trying to reach you for years, but you've been too loud to hear it. Too busy proving, protecting, reacting. Too afraid of what it might say if you truly listen. Because the truth is, listening to yourself isn't comfortable. It's not always kind. It doesn't flatter you. It confronts you. It calls you out. It breaks the illusions you've depended on. But it's also the only voice that knows exactly where you're supposed to go next. You've given too much power to external voices. You've let them define your worth, your pace, your value. And every time you silence your own knowing in favor of someone else's certainty, you drift further from yourself. So pause, get quiet, not just for a moment, but long enough to feel what's real underneath the noise. You'll hear the fear. You'll hear the self-betrayal. You'll hear the unmet needs you've been ignoring. And then if you stay, if you don't run, distract or numb, you'll hear something else. Direction, clarity, peace. Not the kind that comes from knowing what to do next, but the kind that comes from knowing who you are. Even when nothing makes sense, because the voice within you doesn't need a plan. It doesn't need a schedule, a blueprint, or permission. It just needs your attention. So speak less, defend less, and start listening again, especially when it's hard. Because that quiet voice inside you, it's not just part of you, it's the real you, and it's been waiting for you to come home. There comes a point when talking cheapens the work, where explaining feels like begging. Where telling people what you're building only invites opinions from people who don't have the capacity to understand it. And that's when you learn to go quiet. It's not secrecy, it's self-respect. Because not everything sacred belongs in the open. Not every step of your becoming needs an audience. Silence isn't hiding, it's choosing. Choosing what deserves your energy. Choosing what deserves your words. Choosing who gets access to the parts of your journey that are still forming. Because the more you speak, the more you invite pressure. The more you announce, the more you give people a role in something that was never theirs to influence. But when you move in silence, something changes. You stop wasting time managing perception. You stop needing approval. You stop leaking power through unnecessary explanations. You redirect all that energy back into the work, back into the process, back into yourself. And then when the results show, not because you posted about them, not because you hinted or hyped, but because they exist, they speak for themselves. They carry a weight that no words ever could. And those who once doubted, questioned, or underestimated, they'll realize they were never supposed to understand you, because you weren't building for them. You were building through you. So stay low, build deep, move in silence, not because you're afraid to be seen, but because you're finally strong enough not to need it. The real ones never announce arrival, they just show up. You've been trying to control everything, the timing, the outcome, the perception. You've been forcing growth, managing appearances, obsessing over the next step, because deep down, you don't trust what happens if you don't. You think letting go means losing your grip. You think surrender means weakness. But the truth is, this constant control, it's killing your peace. You're exhausted, not from the journey, but from the tightness of how you're carrying it. Gripping too hard, forcing what isn't ready, resisting what is. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that if you're not hustling, fixing, adjusting, or accelerating. You're falling behind. But life doesn't move by force. It unfolds, like seasons, like breath, like a tide that knows when to rise without being told. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing your window. You are exactly where you're supposed to be, even if it doesn't look like progress, even if it's quiet, even if it's still, even if it feels like nothing is happening at all. Because what's growing in you right now is faith, not the kind you preach, the kind you live, the kind that allows you to unclench your fists and release the illusion that you must make everything happen. You don't. Some things need time. Some things need silence. Some things only come when you stop chasing them, and when you finally slow down, not just your steps, but your spirit. You'll notice something that's always been there. Life has a rhythm, and when you stop fighting it, it starts moving through you instead of against you. It doesn't mean it'll all be easy, but it means you'll stop being at war with every pause, every delay, every unknown. You'll start to trust the mess, the slowness, the detours, not as punishments, but as part of the path, because your life isn't on hold, it's in motion. Right now, even in the waiting, even in the undoing, and the moment you stop forcing it, the moment you allow instead of chase, that's when things begin to align, not because you controlled it, but because you finally got out of the way. So breathe, loosen your grip, and let life do what it's been trying to do all along, unfold.